Byblos, in Arabic Jubail, is a Mediterranean city in the Mount Lebanon Governorate, Lebanon. It is believed to have been occupied first between 8,800 and 7,000 BC, and according to fragments attributed to the semi-legendary pre-Homeric Phoenician priest Sanchuniathon, it was built by Cronus as the first city in Phoenicia. It is one of the cities suggested as the oldest continuously inhabited city in the world, and the site has been continuously inhabited since 5000 BC. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Name: Gubal was a Canaanite city during the Bronze Age, at which time it also appears as Gublar in the Amarna letters. During the Iron Age, the city is called Gebel in Phoenician and appears in the Hebrew Bible under the name Gebel. It was much later referred to as Jibalut during the Crusades. The city's Canaanite, Phoenician name can be derived from GB, meaning well, or origin, and Al, the name of the supreme god of Byblos pantheon. The present-day city is known by the Arabic name Jubail or Jabil, a direct descendant of the Canaanite name. However, the Arabic name is most likely derived from the Phoenician word GBL, meaning boundary, district, or mountain peak. In the Ugaritic language, GBL can mean mountain, similarly to Arabic Jabal. The Greek beta upsilon beta lambda omicron sigma, whence we get our Byblos, was the interpretation of Phoenician papyrus received its early Greek name, beta upsilon beta lambda omicron sigma, from its importation to the Aegean through this city. The Greek words beta iota beta lambda omicron sigma, dimunit, beta iota beta lambda iota omicron nu, plural beta iota beta lambda omicron iota dimunit, beta iota beta lambda iota alpha, and ultimately the word Bible, book, hence the Holy Bible, derived from that name. History and archaeology. Byblos is located about 42 kilometers north of Beirut. It is attractive to archaeologists because of the successive layers of debris resulting from centuries of human habitation. It was first excavated by Pierre Montet from 1921 until 1924, followed by Maurice Dunand from 1925 over a period of 40 years. The site first appears to have been settled during the PPNB period, approximately 8,800 to 7,000 BC. Neolithic remains of some buildings can be observed at the site. According to the writer Philo of Byblos, Byblos had the reputation of being the oldest city in the world, founded by Cronus. During the 3rd millennium BC, the first signs of a town can be observed, with the remains of well-built houses of uniform size. This was the period when the Canaanite civilization began to develop. Neolithic and Chalcolithic levels. Jacques Hoven published studies of flint tools from the stratified Neolithic and Chalcolithic sites in 1962. Remains of humans found in Chalcolithic burials have been published by H.V. Valois in 1937. Tombs from this era were discussed by Emir M. Chehab in 1950. Early pottery found at the Tell was published by E.S. Boynton in 1960, with further studies by R. Eric in 1954 and Van Leer and Henry de Contenson in 1964. 5 levels stratigraphy. Prehistoric settlements at Byblos were divided up by Dunand into the following 5 periods, which were recently expanded and recalibrated by Joseph Garfinkel to correlate with Jericho. Neolithic ancient, corresponding to the pre-pottery Neolithic B of Jericho, represented by plastered floors and naviform technology, dated between 8,800 and 7,000 BC. Neolithic ancient, corresponding to the PNA of Jericho IX, between 6,400 and 5,800 BC, represented by pottery, sickle blades, figurines and small points, dated between 6450 and 800 BC. Neolithic Mayan corresponding to the PNB of Jericho 8 and represented by pottery, dated between 5850 300 BC. Neolithic Recent corresponding to the Middle Chalcolithic of Beth Shean and represented by pottery, stone vessels, silos, chamber tombs and seals, dated between 5300 and 4500 BC. Neolithic Ancient corresponding to the Late Chalcolithic of Garsulian, represented by jar burials, pierced flint, churn and a violin figurine, dated to between 4500 and 3600 BC. And Neolithic Recent corresponding to the Early Bronze Age, represented by architecture and cylinder seal impressions, dated to between 3600 and 3100 BC. Neolithic Ancient was a later settlement than others in the Beqaa Valley such as Labwe and Ardtlali. It was located on the seaward slope of the larger of the two hills that used to compose ancient Byblos, with a watered valley in between. The original site spread down into the valley and covered an area of 1.2 hectares, providing fertile soils and a protected landing place for boats. Dunham discovered around 20 houses, although some of the settlement was suggested to have been lost to the sea, robbed or destroyed. Dwellings were rectangular with plastered floors. Pottery was usually dark-faced burnished ware with some shell impressions. Neolithic Mayan was a smaller settlement of no more than 0.15 hectares adjacent to the older site. The pottery was more developed with red washes and more varied forms and elaborate decorations. Buildings were poorer with unplastered floors. The Neolithic Recent period showed development from the Mayan in building design, a wider range of more developed flint tools and a far larger variety of pottery with fabrication including silica. Neolithic Ancient featured developments of Canaanian blades and fan scrapers. Adult burials in jars started to appear along with metal in the form of one copper hook found in a jar. Some jars were lined with white plaster that was applied and self-hardened after firing. Copper appeared more frequently in the Neolithic Recent period along with multiple burials in tombs and jar handles with impressed signs. Early Bronze Age remains were characterized by the development of Byblos combed ware and a lithic assemblage studied by Jacques Coven. Egyptian contact Watson Mills and Roger Bullard suggest that during the Old Kingdom, Byblos was virtually an Egyptian colony. The growing city was evidently a wealthy one and seems to have been an ally of Egypt for many centuries. First Dynasty tombs used timbers from Byblos. One of the oldest Egyptian words for an ocean-going boat was Byblos ship. Archaeologists have recovered Egyptian-made artifacts as old as a vessel fragment bearing the name of the Second Dynasty ruler Khafre. Although this may easily have reached Byblos through Trajan, or at a later period. Objects have been found at Byblos naming the 13th dynasty Egyptian king Neferhotep I. And the rulers of Byblos maintained close relationships with the New Kingdom pharaohs of ancient Egypt. Around 1350 BC, the Amarna tablets include 60 letters from Ribhadda and his successor Ili Rapi, who were rulers of Byblos, writing to the Egyptian government. This is mainly due to Ribhadda's constant pleas for military assistance from Akhenaten. They also deal with the conquest of neighboring city-states by the Hapiru. It appears Egyptian contact peaked during the 19th dynasty, only to decline during the 20th and 21st dynasties. Although the archaeological evidence seems to indicate a brief resurgence during the 22nd and 23rd dynasties. It is clear after the Third Intermediate Period the Egyptians started favoring Tyre and Sidon instead of Byblos. Archaeological evidence at Byblos, particularly the 5 Biblian royal inscriptions dating back to around 1200 to 1000 BC, shows existence of a Phoenician alphabetic script of 22 characters. An important example is the sarcophagus of King Ahiram. The use of the alphabet was spread by Phoenician merchants through their maritime trade into parts of North Africa and Europe. One of the most important monuments of this period is the Temple of Resheph, a Canaanite war god, but this had fallen into ruins by the time of Alexander. Eastern empires in the Assyrian period, Sibitabal of Byblos became tributary to Tiglath-Pileser III in 738 BC, and in 701 BC, when Sen of Cherub conquered all Phoenicia, the king of Byblos was Uramilki. Byblos was also subject to Assyrian kings Esarhaddon and Ashurbanipal, under its own kings Milkirsif and Yehol-Melek. In the Persian period, Byblos was the fourth of four Phoenician vassal kingdoms established by the Persians, the first three being Sidon, Tyre, and Dawad. Western Empire's Hellenistic rule came with the arrival of Alexander the Great in the area in 332 BC. Coinage was in use, and there is abundant evidence of continued trade with other Mediterranean countries. During the Greco-Roman period, the Temple of Resheph was elaborately rebuilt, and the city, though smaller than its neighbors such as Tyre and Sidon, was a center for the cult of Adonis. In the 3rd century, a small but impressive theatre was constructed. With the rise of Christianity, a bishopric was established in Byblos, and the town grew rapidly. Although a Persian colony is known to have been established in the region following the Muslim conquest of 636, there is little archaeological evidence for it. Trade with Europe effectively dried up, and it was not until the coming of the First Crusade in 1098 that prosperity returned to Byblos, known then as Giblet. Byblos, under the name of Giblet or Giblet, was an important military base in the Crusader Kingdom of Jerusalem in the 11th and 12th century. The town was taken by Saladin in 1187, retaken by the Crusaders, and eventually conquered by Byblos in 1266. Its fortifications were subsequently restored. From 1516 until 1918, the town and the whole region were part of the Ottoman Empire. Byblos in all of Lebanon was placed under French mandate from 1920 until 1943 when Lebanon achieved independence. Education. Byblos is home to the professional schools of the Lebanese American University. The Lau Byblos campus houses the medical school, the engineering school, the School of Architecture and Design, the only U.S.-accredited pharmacy school in the Middle East, the School of Business, and the School of Arts and Sciences. The campus is situated on a hill overlooking the city and the Mediterranean Sea. Tourism. Byblos is re-emerging as an upscale touristic hub, with its ancient port, Phoenician, Roman and Crusader ruins, sandy beaches and the picturesque mountains that surround it make it an ideal tourist destination. The city is known for its fish restaurants, open-air bars, and outdoor cafes. Yachts cruise into its harbor today like they did in the 60s and 70s when Marlon Brando and Frank Sinatra were regular visitors to the city. Ancient Phoenician temples. In the archaeological site of Byblos there are the remains of the Great Temple built in 2700 BC, Temple of Baal at Gebel built in 2700 BC and Temple of the Obelisks built around 1600 BC. Byblos Castle. Byblos Castle was built by the Crusaders in the 12th century. It is located in the archaeological site near the port. Medieval city wall. The old medieval part of Byblos is surrounded by walls running about 270 meters from east to west and 200 meters from north to south. Mosque. The old mosque by the castle dates back to Mamluk times in mid-1600. It was renovated by Sultan Abdul Majid and the mosque adopted his name afterwards. Byblos Wax Museum. This museum displays wax statues of characters from Phoenician times to current day St. John the Baptist Church. Work on the church started during the Crusades in 1116. It was considered a cathedral and was partially destroyed during an earthquake in 1176 AD. It was transformed into stables by Islamic forces after the fall of the city, and was given to the Maronites as a gift by Prince Yusef Chehab of Lebanon in the mid-1700s, after they aided him in capturing the city. Byblos Fossil Museum. Byblos Fossil Museum has a collection of fossilized fish, sharks, eel, flying fish, and other marine life, some millions of years old. Historic Quarter and Soaks. In the southeast section of the historic city, near the entrance of the archaeological site, is an old market where tourists can shop for souvenirs and antiques, or simply stroll along the old cobblestone streets and enjoy the architecture. Byblos International Festival. This summer music festival is an annual event that takes place in the historic quarter. Threats to Byblos. The 2006 Lebanon war negatively affected this ancient site by covering the harbor and town walls with an oil slick. This has been, however, cleared, and the coastal area has since then become again a destination for beachgoers, especially in the late spring and throughout the summer season. Today, Byblos is a modern city that still retains its historical past. Byblos remains as one of Lebanon's major tourist sites due to its rich history and scenic mountains overlooking the Mediterranean. Most residents of Byblos are Maronite Catholics. There are also some Shia Muslims that remain, whose ancestors were inhabitants of the city before expulsion at the end of the 13th century by the Mamluk Turks based on a fatwa from Ibn Taymiyyah. It is said that the city of Bint Jabal in southern Lebanon was founded by those displaced Shia. Byblos has 3 representatives in the Parliament of Lebanon, 2 Maronites and 1 Shia. Byblos was crowned as the Arab tour capital for the year 2016, which was announced by the Lebanese Minister of Tourism in the Grand Serail in Beirut. Bibliography. Nina Jadakian, Byblos Through the Ages, Dar al-Makrek, Beirut, 1968. Jean-Pierre Thiolet, Je m'appelle Byblos, H&D, Paris, 2005. International Relations. Twin towns, sister cities. Byblos is twinned with Condé Nast Traveler. Byblos was chosen by Condé Nast Traveler as the second best city in the Middle East for 2012, beating Tel Aviv and Dubai, and by the World Tourism Organization as the best Arab tourist city for 2013. Image gallery.